It is malpractice
Yeah.
to put that boy in a dress, change his name to Emily, and then prepare to cut off his balls. That is
Full disclosure, before the segment I spoke with, I haven't been feeling that well. I
No,
didn't know that he was still a practicing doctor because most of our
I just
friends who are doctors on the show,
it's true. They've abandoned a long time ago, and they're not the best references.
right, they host like American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah.
Or they write books.
They just say to use hot water and soap for everything.
Exactly, pretty much, yeah. Well, this next guest, he still is a doctor and has written some fantastic books. Let me make sure I get them out for there. 4 books: Why Gender Matters, The Collapse of Parenting, Boys Adrift, and Girls on the Edge. You can follow him on Twitter at UnfragileKids. Dr. Leonard Sax, thank you for being here, sir.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I'm really glad to have you. Ooh, listen to that voice. Is there something about the doctor's voice where you have to have a low, soothing tone? Do they teach you that?
I wanted to be a radio announcer. I auditioned. This is WWDB, Boston's talk radio, and they turned me down.
So you just said, I'll just go be a doctor instead.
Yes.
That was my safety's Harvard. So, your timing couldn't be better, obviously. We do this Change My Mind segment on the show. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. You're probably not familiar. Most people don't watch the show, so that's totally fine. We do a segment called Change My Mind, where I'll just talk with people on the street for hours unedited, and it's done pretty well. And the tens of millions of people have been watching them. It's resonated because it's the opposite of cable news, where it's just a conversation, more similar to what you would have in real life. The most recent one was There Are Only Two Genders, Change My Mind. And oh my goodness, doctor. You would have thought that I brought a copy of Mein Kampf out there and slapped it on the table. You've been writing about this for a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about the progression as to how we've gotten to this point, maybe, and where you think it started, this blurring, elimination of gender?
This confusion, absolutely. In 1994, the American Psychiatric Association said that they estimated that about 1 in 30,000 adults is transgender, but they said it's so rare that they really can't come up with any good numbers. Last year, Time magazine had a cover story, Beyond He or She, and they had a survey of 2,000 millennials, and they said, are you cisgender or not? And 12%, 1 in 8, said that they were not cisgender, i.e., they're transgender. So we went from less than 1 in 10,000 to more than 1 in 10 in 30 years. Well, that's crazy. Okay, that can't be right.
Now, how does that polling must be skewed, I would imagine, because I don't know.
Well,
too
that's an
percent.
outlier. But even legitimate researchers are now claiming that 1%, 2% of young adults are transgender, which again is a 100-fold increase
Right.
in 20 some years. And I've talked to my colleagues because, I started a practice from scratch and just outside Washington, D.C., grew it to 7,000 patients. I knew every one of my patients well.
Mm-hmm.
And we have many gay men, many lesbian women. We did not have a single trans individual in those 7,000 patients. And these people confided in me.
Right.
I knew their secrets that their partners did not know. And I've reached out to others. Now, there's a lot of confusion going on here. My friend and colleague, Larry Cahill at University of California, Irvine, says, okay, male and female may not be binary, but they are bimodal. They are bimodal, meaning more than 99.8% of the human race is either male or female.
Right.
There's some very rare conditions that we call intersex conditions where a human may actually have both an ovary and a testicle. That happens.
Right.
But when you add up all those conditions, and I wrote a scholarly paper on that entitled How Common is Intersex?
Well,
You add
just
up
so you know,
all
in
the
this
intersex
recent Change My Mind, a self-proclaimed intersex girl sat down and said it was, at least 1.7% of the population is intersex. She says it's probably higher if doctors didn't play God and assign gender at birth. I know that's inaccurate, but I'd love for you to.
It is not accurate. She's quoting an assertion made by Ann Fausto Sterling, a professor at Brown, and deconstruct her claim and show it is not science, it is ideology.
Mm-hmm.
That when you add up true intersex conditions, the highest possible estimate is 2 in 10,000. So the claim of 1.7% or 2% is an overestimate factor of 100. And it matters because 2 in 10,000, that's a rare anomaly.
Why,
It's
the
not.
the why is my, and I think you get into that a lot as to why gender matters, and you talk about particularly young men quite a bit, the difference between boys and girls. But here's the immediate follow up that we can't do in the change my mind, but I'd love to ask you as a doctor, why? Why are these people who are being cited? Why are they pushing the idea of vastly higher numbers of intersex and transgenders than actually exist? What's the motivation?
There's a war on male and female, and the war is driven by confusion and by a misplaced understanding of social justice.
Mhm.
I understand where they're coming from. For 2,000 years or more actually, we've had men saying that, hey, men and women are different, and that means women are less capable
Right.
in the marketplace, and women should be at home, barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. We've got more than 2,000 years of history of men using claims about difference between male and female to justify limiting opportunity for women. I get that. And so many of these modern social justice warriors feel that, hey, the only virtuous thing is to deny that there's any differences.
Hmm.
That's the only way forward. The only way we're going to ensure equal opportunity for women is to insist that male and female are social constructs. People invent them, they can create them, they can change them any way they like. And that might fit a certain social justice warrior kind of worldview, but it happens to be false. It's not true.
Right.
And in my book, Why Gender Matters, I lay out the research. I have more than 400 scholarly references showing dramatic, profound, hardwired differences in how men and women hear, see, and smell, which are not just in our species, they're in every species that people have looked at.
Right.
These different, so uh,
Now, what's the
for many,
reaction, obviously, to someone like you who focuses on this, because it's the accusations of hate speech, right? Now, it seems as though even psychology, you look at the DSM-5, you look at the way terminology changes, it seems as though a social agenda is driving, in many ways, science and medicine, not the other way around. And that, for someone like me, listen, who's a layman, I can't keep up with all of the modern medical advancements, right? It's not my job. We've had doctors on the show who go, I can't make sense of it. But how do we keep up with this, and why is it happening? That is so concerning to me, that a social agenda would drive medicine or science.
well, that was a big motivation for me to write my Why Gender Matters 14 years ago and the revised edition last year because so much has changed.
You have to
You
do
know,
it every
20
six
years
months.
ago, 20 years ago, if a girl wanted to roll in the mud and wrestle a hog, that was fine. Now, the parents are asked, maybe your daughter is trans. Have you thought about transitioning her to the male role? This is psychotic, and I mean that quite literally. It is deranged. It is detached from reality. There's all different ways to be a girl. There's all different ways to be a boy. And the ironic result of these social justice warriors is that they are ironically creating stereotypes.
Yes.
A girl who doesn't want to play with dolls, well, she must be trans. No, she's not trans.
And you know what's
She's
crazy?
a girl.
Think,
There's more than one way to be a girl.
and think of
And a
transgender
lot.
men. Caitlyn Jenner is a walking Barbie doll, right? Feminists would be furious if anyone else were on the cover of these magazines. It's like, well, no, it's a guy. So the giant, the fake boobs and the perfect makeup and the corset, we're fine with it. Hold on a second. My producer had a question for you.
Something I noticed with many of the transgenders we've interviewed, be it on the show or in these Change My Mind segments, almost all of them have been transitioned for like maybe a year, maybe 2 years. It's all a very recent thing, and they like to pretend they've known all along. They've just been denying the truth, and that transgenders have existed throughout every century.
Are there statistics to reflect that?
We
They're
know a
recent?
lot about this. We've got lots of good studies. We've got people like Dr. Kenneth Zucker, who's been studying kids for 30 years. So 30 years ago, a 5-year-old boy is brought into his office, and the 5-year-old boy says, I know I'm a girl trapped in the body of a boy. I'm a girl.
Right.
What do we know about these individuals? We know a lot about them because Dr. Zucker's followed thousands of these kids for 30 years. And we know the great majority of those 5-year-old boys who at age 5 say, I'm a girl trapped in the body of a boy, 20 years down the road, that individual most likely will be a gay man. He doesn't want to be a woman. He doesn't think he is a woman. He didn't understand. Look, figuring out that you're gay takes time. If you ask a 5-year-old, would you like to be sexually intimate with a man or a woman? They don't know what that means, nor should they.
Just play it safe and put them on puberty blockers, doctor. That's the safe route.
I asked my mom when I was 7 years old, I asked my mom, if I marry a woman, do I have to take off my pajamas in bed with her? And my mom said, yes, you do, but you'll want to. I said, yuck. Look, asking 7-year-olds who they want to be intimate with sexually is not appropriate. It's not meaningful. That 5-year-old has no way of knowing whether he's going to grow to be a gay man, a straight man, what have you. It is malpractice.
Yeah.
To put that boy in a dress, change his name to Emily, and then prepare to cut off his balls. That is wrong.
These are medical terminologies we need not concern ourselves
very,
with.
very sophisticated here. And so I wrote my book, Why Gender Matters, new edition, has a whole chapter on transgender, which wasn't in the old edition, because I'm trying to give that parent guidance. If your 5-year-old son comes to you and says, I'm a girl, what should you do? Well, you don't have to guess. We've got good research from good scientists who've been studying this for 30 years. Don't listen to Caitlyn Jenner or MSNBC. Look at what the researchers have published on this point. It's readily available. I provide the links. Find someone who's knowledgeable. Get some guidance.
That's very good advice.
Don't let people start medicating your child. Don't let surgeons come anywhere close to your child.
That's a great question that you bring up, and I would love to have you back. I know we don't have a ton of time today, but I'd love to have you back for a long-form interview just to dissect this, because we've talked about this in the show. It is asinine to me to argue that a child should be able to transition before they reach the age of consent. So I can only consent sexually at 16, but I'm going to make a decision that permanently affects my sexual well-being and my sexual lifestyle by the time I'm 8, because Chaz Jennings had a show and did jazz hands. I do want to have you back and speak about this at length if you can. The books are Why Gender Matters. There's a new edition, Collapse of Parenting, Boys Adrift, and Girls on the Edge. You can follow Dr. Leonard Sax at Unfragile Kids. Doctor, can we have you back for a full 45 minutes to an hour sometime in the next few weeks?
Absolutely.
Hey, if you like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, or if you want to continue to enjoy free content, support us at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub, where you get the full nightly show. An hour every day free, along with all of our friends' content. If not, you don't want to do any of those things, you're probably just here, you're watching me seething. You came here to hate watch. That being said, the internet was created for people like you.